Development of the Type 7 U-boat was an outgrowth of Germany's heavy reliance on submarines as part of their naval arsenal during World War I. Now, in the years between the wars, they were forbidden from developing submarines by the Treaty of Versailles, and thus they had to work in secret, planning and designing their next generation of undersea weaponry. Now, this work was often done under the guise of the Finnish and Spanish Navy. However, by 1935, the British wanted to build more submarines, and a treaty was worked out that canceled Versailles' prohibitions on submarine production. Now, production of the Type 7 boats began in earnest in 1933, with most being built in Bremen. They could move more nimbly and dive faster than any of the other larger, bulkier German subs of the time. And for the average crew member, the relatively more cramped conditions were a very small price to pay for maneuverability that could be brought into play to avoid an enemy depth charge. They were also more heavily armed than comparative vessels, with 4 bow torpedo tubes and 1 stern tube. And in all, they carried 11 torpedoes on board, and the vessels were also armed with an 88mm deck gun for surface engagements. Now, an added benefit was that they carried less diesel fuel than other submarines, and so their patrols were shorter, which was another plus to crew members. Now, the very first generation of the Type 7s was the 7A, and these were built before the war. Now, only 2 survived the war, and these were scuttled soon after VE Day. They had 2 21-horsepower diesel engines for surface running, and 2 battery-powered 750-horsepower electric motors for submerged operations. From 1936 to 40, 24-7Bs were built, and they had more powerful engines and could carry more fuel. Now, to enhance maneuverability, they had dual rudders, and the number of torpedoes aboard was up to 14, with the aft torpedo now being loaded from inside the boat, instead of being loaded from outside while they were in port. Now, by far the most common U-boat of the Type 7 family was the 7Cs, and these went into production in 1940, with 568 commissioned. And they were nearly identical to the 7B, except they were 2 feet longer and they had a sonar. And in 1943, several 7Cs were fitted with 28mm automatic anti-aircraft guns, as well as a single 37mm gun. And these U-flak or flak traps were intended to counter naval aircraft. And for a couple of months this actually worked, until the RAF began to change their tactics, and the subs were eventually converted back to their original purpose. The Type 7 C-41 was built with a stronger hull and lighter internal machinery, so that it could dive deeper and faster. Now, 91 of these were built, and interestingly, of the total 703 Type 7 U-boats that were built during the war, only one, a 7C-41 christened U-995, is still in existence, and it's part of the German Naval Museum at Le Beau. Now, the Type 7D was a specialized mine layer, and they were built in 39 and 40, and only 6 were ever launched, with 5 of those sunk, and they went down with all hands on board. And the last 7D was scuttled by the British after the war. Similarly, the Type 7F was a specialized sub whose purpose was to resupply other U-boats with torpedoes while they were at sea. And they were larger and heavier, they didn't have a deck gun, and they could carry up to 39 torpedoes. Now, only 4 of these were built, with 3 sunk while in service, and 1 scuttled at the end of the war. Okay, this week's game is Unterseeboot, U-boat Solitaire. It came out in 2016, and its designers was Etienne Michaud, and it was published on the web, so it's a little web-published print-and-play game. Now, the components of the game include counters, and there's 9 types, and these include torpedoes, damage trackers, auxiliary battery counters, and battery counters, a turn counter, a U-boat counter, targets, detection counters, and spotted counters. Now, the game board itself is an abstract representation of your patrol zone in the North Atlantic, with 5 to 6 spaces across and 4 levels deep. And Unterseeboot uses a standard 6-sided die, or a D6, and you need a total of 6 of these, including a battle die and 5 tanker die. Now, to set this up, you prepare your submarine. You place the 3 hull tokens on the spaces indicated, and then you place the 6 main battery tokens on their spaces, the 3 auxiliary power tokens on their spaces, and finally the 7 torpedo tokens on their spaces. Now your submarine's fully equipped and it's ready to patrol, and you then place the U-boat token on the Start Patrol Here space. With your U-boat set up, you receive your orders for the patrol, and a patrol lasts for 20 turns. You place the turn marker on the first game turn, and you move this marker to the next higher number at the start of each game turn until the game ends at the completion of turn 20. Then set up the targets, and you place 1 unidentified target token on each of the tanker locations at surface level. Each of these tokens represents a potential Allied cargo ship or tanker. Now, during the game, you'll determine the amount of tonnage to each target, and when this happens, you'll need to replace the unidentified target token with an identified target token showing that tonnage. Turns are divided into 6 phases, And there's a maneuver phase where the player moves their U-boat on the game board. A battery power phase where the player removes the battery power if the U-boat's submerged or fully replenishes battery power if they're surfaced. A target identification phase where the player can identify targets if the U-boat is on the surface or at periscope depth. The fourth phase is the aircraft phase where an enemy aircraft attempt to spot and strafe any surfaced U-boats, followed by a torpedo phase where a player can attempt to sink a target if the U-boat's on the surface or at periscope depth. And finally, a destroyer phase. And now, if the U-boat's fired a torpedo, destroyers will then attempt to engage it with surface fire or depth charges. Now, once you've completed the destroyer phase, the turn ends, and another begins with a new maneuver phase. So let's talk a little bit about maneuvers. During the maneuver phase, you can move a U-boat one space up, down, right, or left. Alternatively, you can also choose to remain in place. Now, there's 4 depth levels: surface, periscope, 100 meters, and 200 meters. And U-boats run on batteries while they're submerged, so managing the power levels is important to survival. Now, while on the surface, the boat's batteries are recharged by its diesel engines. And your U-boat has 6 main battery tokens and 3 auxiliary power tokens. Now, if the U-boat starts this phase submerged, that's at periscope depth, 100 meters or 200 meters, remove 1 battery token or an auxiliary power token. Now, if you can't remove one of these tokens, the U-boat immediately sinks. For the recharging battery phase, if the U-boat starts this phase on the surface, you immediately replace all used main battery tokens. However, auxiliary power tokens can't be recharged, so use them wisely. Now, during the target identification phase, if your U-boat's on the surface or periscope depth, you may now attempt to identify an unidentified target in the same or an adjacent space. And you may attempt to identify only one unidentified target per turn. To identify a target, you replace the unidentified target token with an identified target token, and then you roll one of your unused target dice. On a 2+, place the die on the identified target token to represent the target's tonnage, with each point representing 1,000 tons. On a 1, you've identified a false contact, so there's no target to sink, and you simply discard the identified target token. The next phase is the aircraft search. If the U-boat is submerged, enemy aircraft can't spot you. You discard the spotted token on this U-boat and you proceed to the torpedo phase. Now, if the U-boat is surfaced, an enemy plane will attempt to spot you. To do this, you roll a die, and on a 4+, the U-boat is not spotted, and you can proceed to the torpedo phase. Otherwise, the U-boat's spotted, and you place a spotted token in the enemy aircraft area on the board. Now, if the U-boat starts this phase with a spotted token, or gains 1 as a result of this search, or becomes spotted as a result of this search, immediately resolve a strafing attack before moving to the torpedo phase. To resolve a strafing attack, the aircraft attacks your U-boat and you roll a die. On a 3+, the U-boat's damaged. Otherwise, the U-boat escapes damage, but it does remain spotted. Now, if the U-boat submerges, enemy aircraft will lose track of you, and you discard any spotted tokens on the U-boat. Now, during your torpedo phase, you may attack 1 identified target. Now, the U-boat can only launch 1 torpedo per turn, and it can't fire torpedoes at a depth of either 100 or 200 meters. If the U-boat's on the surface and in the same space as the target, you remove a torpedo token from your submarine and you roll a die. And on a 3+, the target's hit and sunk, and you place the target die on your victory's area to mark your score. Otherwise, your attack misses. To make a submerged attack, if the U-boat's at periscope depth and is in an adjacent space to the target, you remove a torpedo token from your submarine and you roll a die. On a 4+, the target's hit and sunk, and again you place the target die on your victory's area to mark your score. Otherwise, the torpedo misses. The next phase is the destroyer phase. Now, destroyer escorts identify torpedo attacks, and they can track down enemy submarines, and their search is determined and relentless. Now, if your U-boat fires a torpedo on the surface, a destroyer automatically detects you and it attacks, and you place a detected token in the enemy destroyer area of the board. Now, if the U-boat fires a torpedo at periscope depth, the destroyer will start a search for you, and once a destroyer begins its search, it will not relent until it's either detected your U-boat or you've evaded it. And remember to place a searching token on the enemy destroyer area of the board to remind you to resolve a destroyer search during each destroyer phase. To resolve destroyer searches, if the U-boat is submerged, the destroyer will search for your U-boat and you roll a die. On a 4+, the U-boat isn't detected and you can proceed to the next turn. However, remember to roll again for a destroyer search during that next turn. Otherwise, the U-boat is detected and you replace the searching token in the enemy destroyer area with a detected token. Now, if the U-boat starts this phase with a detected token or gains 1 as a result of the search, you immediately resolve the destroyer attack before moving to the next turn. If a destroyer attacks your U-boat with depth charges and surface fire, you roll a die. And a U-boat on the surface is damaged on a result of 3+. A U-boat at periscope depth is damaged on a result of 4+. A U-boat at 100 meters is damaged on a result of 5+. A U-boat at 200 meters is damaged on a result of 6+. Otherwise, you escape damage. And the destroyer will only attack once per turn. Now, to evade the destroyer attack, if the U-boat ends their phase at 200 meters, having survived any destroyer attacks, they've successfully evaded the destroyer, and you discard all search or detected tokens from the enemy destroyer area. Now remember, the destroyer will only search for a U-boat if it's fired a torpedo. So, for example, if a U-boat was strafed by an aircraft but didn't fire a torpedo, it will remain undetected by the destroyer. Now, any sort of damage from strafing, depth charges, and surface fire simulates things like flooding, mechanical failures, and the ship's infrastructure being stressed by combat. And your U-boat can sustain up to 3 points of damage before it's sunk. Now, when your U-boat takes damage, you can attempt to quickly repair that damage before it becomes permanent. You have exactly one attempt per damage, and only immediately after it's sustained. To repair the damage, you simply roll a die, and on a 4+, your ship's repaired the damage and it's ignored. Otherwise, the crew fails to repair it, and you remove a hull token from the submarine. Now, if you've lost all 3 hull tokens, your U-boat is sunk, and the game ends immediately. So to basically end the game, you can either complete turn 20, or your U-boat sinks. You can choose to return to base and end the game, and you may want to select this option after sinking a few target ships, or you've expended all 7 of your U-boat torpedoes. Now, to successfully do this, you begin the turn with no detected or searching tokens in the enemy destroyer area, and you return the U-boat to the surface, and you finally survive an aircraft phase one last time. Once you've met all these conditions, you can cruise home. Now, you lose the game if your U-boats fail to surface by the end of turn 20, or you've used all your battery and auxiliary power tokens while underwater, or your U-boat has no more hull tokens remaining. Now, to determine how well you've done, you return to base, and you add up the enemy tonnage that you've sunk, and you check out the victory level result table to see how you did. And remember, these awards are received based on performance in a single patrol. Hey everybody, I'm back with Unterseeboot. It's a little solitaire print-and-play U-boat game, and it's really a very nicely done little game. The artwork and the page layout and the graphic design's all really nice for this one, and the rules are really pretty clear. I'll link down below to the print-and-play version of this as well as the Vassal Module, and the Vassal Module for this is excellent. It pretty much leads you through everything. The only thing I might put down here is I might bring a search, the search unit right there, and a spotted thing here, so that will I'll have those handy. It's got a quick reference sheet that'll lead you through all of the different turns. So, like I said, you can have this game downloaded, ready to go, and be playing in 10 minutes if you want. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, just to show you where the pieces are, I kind of went through that in the rules, but got my hull markers here, batteries here, auxiliary batteries here, torpedoes here, turn marker here. The targets are across the top here, and my U-boat's right here. So everybody's set up. Okay, so I'm going to maneuver, and I think what I'm going to do, starting with my U-boat, is I'm going to drop one space and go to periscope depth and approach this unidentified target here. So doing that, you're going to flip your target, and oh, I need to remove my battery. Forgot that. See, this is why I check myself. There we go. Okay, so we got a dead battery. And then we're going to do our target identification, and I flip it, and I'll hit my roll tonnage die. Well, I say that. There we go. It's got kind of a tricky little, the little controls here are a little bit tricky to use. You have to kind of monkey with them a little bit. Okay, so it's not a real big ship, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to make an attack on it. But before I do that, I have to see if aircraft see me. So I roll a die 6, and I get a 5. So I wasn't spotted by aircraft. I can then make a torpedo shot. And you go down here for your torpedoes. So first thing I'll do is I'll delete the torpedo. Now I'm at periscope depth, so I need a 4 or better. So I roll, and I get a 3. So yeah, I send him to the bottom. Okay. Then the next phase is the destroyer phase. Now since I've shot a a torpedo, the destroyers will start to search for me. And to see if they find me, I roll a d6, and if I get a 3, which I do, I am spotted. So right now I'm spotted, and I flip that over, and I'm detected. And then the destroyer is going to try to hit me with some depth charges. And I'm at periscope depth, so they'll need a 4 or more. And I get a 6, so they did some damage. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my hull, and I'm going to try to repair it immediately. And so I need a 4 or better, and I don't get it. So I lose a hull point, and that's permanent. Okay, and then that ends the turn. So I go to turn 2. Now I'm in turn 2, and I've got a destroyer looking at me. He sees me. So my really only thing I can do is dive. So I'm going to dive down to 100 meters. That's going to cost me a battery. And since I'm underwater, there's no enemy aircraft. I can't fire a torpedo, so now it's up to the destroyer, and he's going to try to drop another depth charge. Now, he doesn't have to detect me, because he already does, so he needs a 5 or more. Gets a 6, so he hits me. We're going to try to do a repair real quick, and I get a 6, so I don't repair. It's looking bad. Okay. We will go, and then we can go to our next turn. Okay, next turn, we start with maneuver, and I'm going to go to 200 meters. And I'm going to use a battery, and can't use torpedoes, can't do anything, aircraft can't see me, so we go right to the destroyer phase again. Now, he needs a 6 to hit me. He gets a 5, so he misses, and since he misses, I'm no longer detected. So we can put this off. I basically ran underwater and was able to get away. Okay, and that's the turn. We go to turn 4. And I'm going to go back upwards. It's going to cost me a battery. Now, the destroyer's not looking for me now. Aircraft can't see me. So that's the turn. It's a short one. Okay, go to turn 5. And we're going to go back up here. Cost me another battery. And that's all that can happen again. So we go to turn 6. Now at this point, I'm going to go up here, and we're going to surface. Now, since I'm surfaced, I can bring these batteries back. I can flip over to my diesel engines. So flip, 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 and flip. And we're going to make another attack. So we try to identify our target. Let's see if I can get this right now. So I hit tonnage die, flip. Yeah, okay. Now, if it's a 1, that means that these are just I misinterpreted a target. So basically, that's a piece of driftwood floating around. So we can just delete that. And, however, there's a problem, is that the aircraft now are going to be looking for me. And they get a 5, so they don't see me. I'm at the surface, and normally a destroyer would be able to see me, but since I didn't fire a torpedo, he won't be searching. So that ends the turn. Like I say, these turns go fast. This game plays out, 5-10 minutes. Okay. We're going to go to the next turn, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to... I'm going to go ahead and just move into this hex here, or hex. I call it, every time I say a square, every time I see a square, I say hex. Okay, we'll do a quick, we don't use any batteries since we're on the surface. We'll do a tonnage check, a roll tonnage die, and a flip, and I get a 2. Okay, so we're going to have an aircraft phase, and we roll a 5. So nothing there. I'm going to fire a torpedo. Now I'm at the surface, so you'll see down here I need a 3 or more. Let's delete this torpedo. And we roll, 3 or more, I rolled a 6. So yeah, I sink him. Okay, now, I'm on the surface. I shot a torpedo at the surface. That means I'm automatically detected by destroyers. So I flip him, and the destroyers get to make their first attack against me. So they need a 3 or more, and they get a 6. So they are able to fire at me. And so basically I have one hull point left. If I get a 4 or more, if I get a 4, 5, or 6, then the whole hull is repaired and I can try to get away. If I get a 1, 2, or 3, it's over. And I got a 4, so yeah, I'm able to make my hull repair. And that is turn. Let me go to turn 8. Okay. We start with the maneuver, and I'm going to go underwater. Battery power, we'll use our first battery. Target identification, no target I'm trying to identify. Basically, I'm not going to fire on 2 vessels. I have to resolve each one before I can attack again. Okay, aircraft, I'm underwater so they can't see me. Torpedoes, nothing. And destroyers. Now the destroyer needs a 4, 5, or 6. Gets a 4, so he hits me again. I need a 4, 5, or 6 to fix the hull, and I don't get it. So he is deleted, and my U-boat goes to the bottom. So basically I was able to sink 4,000 tons, or let's see. Yeah. So I get the U-boat war badge if I would have been able to make it back. So we'll try it again here and see how it goes. All right, let's try another patrol and see if we have a little better luck. I've got everything set up again, and I can take my U-boat out. I think I'll go ahead and we'll start our maneuver, and we'll maneuver right into here at the surface. So we don't use any batteries for that. And so that means we can start identifying the target, tonnage, roll tonnage die, flip him, and so there's nothing there. So we can put that up there. That's just a piece of driftwood. It's the Loch Ness Monster. However, the aircraft still got to look for us, and they get a 1, so they do spot us, and they get to try to strafe us, and they got a 5, so they miss. Okay, and they fly off. Now, I didn't fire torpedoes, so the destroyers won't be looking for me, which is good because I was on the surface, which means they would automatically find me. Okay, and that's the end of turn 1. Turn 2. Going to do the same thing. I'm going to move into this square. Almost called it a hex. We're not going to use any battery because we're on the surface. I'll check to see what's here. Okay, 4. Not bad. And so we've identified the target. Now let's do our aircraft phase. Pull that off because and we get a 5. So the aircraft don't spot us, and we're free to make a torpedo shot. And from the surface, I need a 3 or better. I got a 6, so I sink him. I guess this guy can delete right here. And since I was on the surface and I took the torpedo shot, that means I'm automatically detected by the destroyers. Whoops. Flip it. There we go. So they're going to they get a shot at me. And a 1. They needed a 3 or better, and they got a 1, so they missed. But I'm still detected. And that ends the turn. Okay, we go to turn 2. I got to try to shake the destroyers. So my maneuver is going to go down underwater, and I'm going to flip a battery for that. There's no targets to identify. Aircraft, there's no aircraft because I'm underwater. Torpedo phase, there's nobody I can shoot at. And so the destroyers get to go. So they need a 4 or better. They get a 2, so they miss. And that's the turn. Okay, next turn. Going to go down further. Drain a little bit of my battery. The destroyers attempt again, and they need a 5 or 6, and they get a 2, so they don't. And that's the turn. Okay. Then we go to the next turn. I'm going to go under further. And that's going to take my battery here. Okay. And then the destroyers are going to try to use depth charges. Now, they're only going to be able to get me on a 6, and they don't. So since I'm at 200 meters and they weren't able to find me, I was able to outrun them, or sitting there silently on the bottom waiting for them to move away. So, okay. We go to next turn, and I'm going to come up 1 more. And we go to next turn. I come up one more. And then I'm going to, I think we'll try firing from right here. No, I'm going to need those batteries. So we're going to go up one more. And that'll let me switch over to diesel and recharge my batteries. Okay. Otherwise, I think I'd fail down on the bottom. Okay, so that was our maneuver phase. Battery power phase we've done. Targeted identification. Okay. Tonnage, roll die, and flip. And 5. Okay, nice. So we're on the surface, and first of all, we go through a strafing attack. Maybe. At 3, yeah, we do. So we've been spotted by the planes, and they do it on a 3 or better. 4. Okay, so my hull takes a damage. I want to see if I can repair it. I do. Okay, so that's it for them. Now they fly off. This was on the surface, so I'm automatically detected again. And, oh, before we do that, my U-boat gets to make a torpedo attack. Let's do that. So we need on the surface I need a 3 or better. Oh, 1, so nothing there. Okay, now the destroyers will make their attack. They need a 3 or better. They get a 4, so that's potentially against my hull. Let's see if we repair it. Nope, I don't, so delete there. Okay. And that's the turn. We go to turn 8. I'm going to sink back down, use a battery. I think I can still fire this phase. I can go, yeah, I think I can fire torpedo because I'm at torpedo depth. So we'll, aircraft won't do anything, but torpedo phase, I need a 4 better. And I got a 3, so nothing there. Okay, now the destroyer gets a chance at me. Needs a 4, 5, or 6. Gets a 3, so nothing. We go to the next turn. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to burn a battery. I'm going to fire a torpedo. I'd like to bring this guy down, and I get a 6, so that sinks him. Okay, and the destroyer, I'm detected, so the destroyers get to go. They need a 4, 5, or 6, and they get a 6, so they do hull damage. If I can save, I do. I save, so they don't do anything. Okay, go to next turn, and we're going to go down. We're going to dive. I'm going to flip this, and the destroyer gets a chance to go, and gets a 6, so he gets me at 100 meters. He needed a 5 or 6, so let's see what I got for hull damage. Oh, I don't make it, so I take another hull damage. Okay. We go to next turn, and I get to go down further. So there's a battery. The destroyer gets to go. Now they need a 6. Gets a 2, so he misses, and he's no longer. I'm out of his range. Okay. Now we need to try to get out of this situation. So I think I'll try to go home. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to turn 12. I go up 1. Use a battery. I go to turn 13. Up 1. Use a battery. And then surface. And that was the next. That was 14. Now I can go home. The one thing is there's one final air strafing attack that my enemy gets. So we're going to roll a 5. So he doesn't. And I go home. And I've sunk 9,000 or 90,000 tons. Let's check my victory. I got a U-boat combat clasp. So that's about all I got. So you can see these get to be pretty challenging after a while to get up to any of these victory levels. Now there's a big ship options that you can use by rolling a D6 and trying to get even higher tonnage. So you can do that, and that's how you would get these these real high tonnage ones, which would give you some high victory points and everything. But hey, at least I made it home this time. Sank 2 ships and made it home. Anyway, I think you can see that this game's kind of fun. I think it's kind of just a little diversion. If you want to take about 10 minutes to play, you got a little time on your lunch break, I think this is a kind of fun one to play. So I'll leave it at that, but we will talk to you next week and try to come out with some bigger games. I just do these little small games every once in a while just to mix things up. So, okay, talk to you later. Bye.